The evening air on Virulon Colony was filled with the hum of machines and the faint sound of metal being welded in distant hangars. The colony was built under a translucent dome that glowed softly with the light of the twin moons above. Humans and aliens worked together here, trying to rebuild what was lost after the long interstellar war, inside a small workers' quarter near the lower hangar levels. Tlira, a young alien woman with smooth violet skin and silver eyes, sat at a small metal table. Her little daughter, Ari, watched her with wide, hopeful eyes. On the table between them lay a small mechanical toy, a bird-shaped drone, no bigger than Tlira's hand. Its delicate wings were cracked, and its internal lights were dead. "Can you fix it, Mama?" Ari asked softly, clutching the edge of the table. Her voice was full of faith and trust, the kind that only children could have. Tlira smiled weakly and nodded. "I will try, my little star," she said, though her voice trembled. Her fingers, slender, graceful, but worn from work, carefully opened the toy's small panel. Tiny circuits glittered inside, like broken glass. She had once been a medical technician on her home world before it was destroyed. Back then, her hands had saved lives. Now they scrubbed cargo decks and cleaned air ducts to earn a few credits each week. She worked long shifts at the human maintenance station just to feed Ari and pay for their small room in the colony's lower sector. The toy had been Ari's only treasure. A kind soldier had given it to her years ago during the evacuation. The child had loved it ever since. Every night she made it fly around the room until its batteries faded and its wings gave up. When it finally broke, Tlira promised to fix it, but that was weeks ago. Every attempt ended in failure. Tonight she wanted to try again. She wanted her daughter to smile. She held her breath and pressed a tiny tool to the wire. A small spark jumped, bright and sudden. For a heartbeat, the bird twitched, and then there was a sharp pop. Smoke curled from its wing. The smell of burnt plastic filled the air. Tlira froze. Her heart sank. Ari's little smile faded. The room went silent, except for the faint hum of the colony filters. Tlira looked down at the broken toy, at the dark metal that would never fly again, and suddenly her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I tried." Ari didn't speak. She just looked at her mother, confused, maybe scared, as tears began to fall from Tlira's silver eyes. The single mother pulled her daughter close and held her tightly. "It's just a toy," she said quietly, almost as if trying to believe it herself. "We can make another." But they both knew they couldn't. They barely had enough money for food, let alone a new toy. Outside their small window, the lights of the colony flickered. The day shift workers were leaving. The air smelled of dust and oil. Most humans had gone home, but a few still worked in the distant hangars. One of them, a human man, happened to glance through the open maintenance door across the street and saw the small scene inside. Jack Morgan, a human mechanic, had been repairing a mining drone when he noticed them. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, with rough hands and tired eyes. He had seen many things on Virulon. Ships crash, colonies fail, and people break under the weight of loneliness. But something about that alien woman sitting in the dim light, holding her child and crying over a small broken toy, stopped him. He didn't know her name. He had only seen her once or twice passing by the hangars, but he saw the way her shoulders shook, the way she tried to hide her face from her daughter, and something in his chest tightened. Jack wiped his hands on a rag and hesitated. Humans weren't known for mixing much with the alien workers. The different species kept to themselves, polite but distant. But Jack had always been the kind who couldn't walk away when someone was hurting, even if they weren't human. He walked across the narrow street, boots echoing softly on the metal floor. He stopped near the door and gently knocked on the side. Tlira looked up, startled. Her silver eyes widened slightly as she saw the human standing there. His coveralls were dirty and his face was streaked with engine grease, but his expression was calm and kind. "Sorry to bother you," Jack said quietly. "I couldn't help noticing the little one's toy. Looked like it gave up the ghost, huh?" Tlira blinked. Her species wasn't used to casual human humor. She nodded slowly. "It broke. I tried to fix it, but I made it worse. Jack crouched slightly, keeping his voice gentle. Mind if I take a look? I'm a mechanic. Fixing things is kind of what I do. For a long moment, Talira hesitated. She wasn't sure if she should trust him. Humans were known for being unpredictable. Some were kind, others harsh. But when she looked at her daughter, who gazed at the man with quiet curiosity, she finally nodded. Jack smiled a little. All right then, he said, stepping inside. The room was small, barely large enough for a table, 2 chairs, and a sleeping pod. Jack sat down carefully, not wanting to seem too large or rough in the delicate space. He picked up the toy and turned it over in his hands. The little bird was beautifully made. Alien craftsmanship. It's precise and elegant, but the wiring was melted. He whistled softly. You did good trying to fix it, he said honestly. You've got the access panel, right? The problem's just the power relay it's burned through. Talira looked down, embarrassed. I only wanted it to fly again, she said. It made her happy. Jack looked up at her, seeing the exhaustion behind her eyes. It will again, he said simply. He stood and motioned toward the door. Come on, my station's just across the way. Got better tools there. Talira hesitated again. I can't pay you, she said softly. Jack shrugged. Didn't ask for payment. Sometimes things need fixing. That's enough reason for me. She didn't know what to say. Humans spoke strangely, with heart instead of logic. Finally, she gathered Airy in her arms and followed him across the quiet. Corridor into the mechanic's hangar, the workshop smelled of oil and warm metal. Tools hung neatly on the wall. A half-repaired mining drone sat in the corner. Jack placed the small bird on his workbench under the soft yellow light. Airy watched with wide eyes as he pulled open drawers, selecting tools that gleamed in the light. He worked with practiced ease, unscrewing tiny bolts and replacing a burned wire. His hands were steady and confident. Talira stood silently behind him. She didn't understand why this human cared, but there was something soothing about watching him work. Each motion was deliberate and gentle, as if he respected the broken toy, as if it mattered. You humans, she said quietly after a moment, you fix everything with your hands? Jack chuckled. That's one way to put it. We like making things run again, even if they shouldn't. She tilted her head. Even if they shouldn't? Yeah, he said with a half-smile. Sometimes fixing something is about hope, not logic. You just can't let it stay broken. Talira stared at him. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not since before the war. After a few minutes, Jack reattached the small power relay and pressed a switch. The bird's eyes flickered with soft blue light. Its wings fluttered weakly, then stronger, until it lifted an inch off the bench. Airy gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. The tiny drone circled once in the air before landing on Jack's shoulder. The human grinned. There you go, little one, he said. Good as new. Airy ran forward, laughing. It flies. It really flies. Her laughter filled the hangar, light and pure. Talira's eyes shimmered with tears again, but this time they weren't from sadness. Jack gently handed the toy to Airy. Be careful with it. I added a human capacitor. Should last longer now. Talira bowed her head slightly. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know why you helped us, but thank you. Jack smiled faintly. You looked like you needed a hand. That's all. As Talira and Airy left the hangar, the little bird fluttered in circles above them, glowing softly in the dim light. The human watched them go, the faintest smile on his face. He didn't know their story, not yet. But something told him this wouldn't be the last time their paths crossed. Outside, the wind whispered against the colony dome. For the first time in years, Talira felt warmth in the cold air. A stranger had mended more than a toy tonight. He had repaired something inside her that she thought was gone forever. For the next few days, Talira could not stop thinking about the human mechanic. Every time Airy made the toy bird fly around their room, laughing as it circled her head, Talira felt something new inside her, a quiet warmth that she had forgotten existed. On Virelanine, most workers lived like machines. They woke, worked, ate, and slept. Smiles were rare, laughter even rarer. But ever since that night, Ari had begun to smile again, and Talira found herself smiling too. Still, she was confused. Why would a human help them for nothing? She had seen many humans since coming to the colony. Traders, miners, guards, most of them too busy or too proud to notice an alien cleaner and her little child. But Jack Morgan was different. He had seen her tears and stepped in without asking for anything. That simple act kept echoing in her thoughts. She decided she had to thank him properly. The next morning, after finishing her cleaning shift in the cargo tunnels, she stopped by the hangar where Jack worked. The big metal door was half open. She could hear the sound of tools and the soft hum of an engine being tested. Inside, Jack was bent over the open frame of a shuttle engine, sparks lighting his face. He looked up when he heard footsteps. His face broke into a small smile. "Hey, it's the lady with the fastest bird in the colony," he said. Talira almost blushed, a reaction uncommon for her species. "I wanted to thank you again," she said softly. "The toy still flies. Ari loves it." Jack wiped his hands and leaned against the workbench. "Glad to hear it. She's got a strong laugh, fills this place better than all the machines." Talira tilted her head, studying him. Humans had strange ways of speaking, full of warmth, even in simple words. "You fix things all day," she said. "Doesn't it tire you?" Jack chuckled. "Sometimes. But it's good work. You see something broken, you make it better. Makes the world a little less heavy." She thought about that for a moment. "We used to believe that too," she murmured. "Before the war?" Jack's eyes softened. "You lost someone?" Clara nodded slowly. "My mate, my city, my people." She looked down. "Now it's just me and Ari." There was silence between them, filled only by the hum of power tools and the low buzz of a light overhead. Jack didn't say "I'm sorry." He simply reached for a nearby stool and pushed it toward her. "Sit," he said gently. "You look like you've been carrying a ship on your back." For a moment she hesitated. No one had spoken to her like that, not with kindness, not with understanding. Then she sat, her hands folded in her lap. Jack turned back to his work but kept talking. "You know," he said, "humans aren't good at staying out of things. We see someone struggling and it just bothers us. We have to do something." Talira smiled faintly. "That sounds like trouble." "Usually is," Jack admitted, laughing. "But it's what makes us human." Ari ran in just then, her small feet pattering on the metal floor. "Mama, look." She held up the toy bird, now decorated with small ribbons she had found. "It can dance." Jack laughed as the bird fluttered clumsily in circles, beeping in rhythm. "Guess my repair worked better than I thought," he said. Ari giggled. "It's magic." Clara looked at him. "She calls everything magic now," she said softly. "You did that."
Jack shrugged.
Maybe she's right. Maybe fixing things is its own kind of magic. They talked a little longer before Talira and Ari left. But that night, she found herself thinking about his words again. Maybe fixing things is magic. A week later, the colony was hit by a sudden sandstorm. Varela had little protection against the fierce winds that blew through the valley when the domes malfunctioned. Power flickered, communication dropped, and the workers were told to stay indoors. Clara was still at work when the alarms sounded. She was cleaning the upper cargo hold when the power cut out completely. Emergency lights flashed red. The air systems stopped for a moment, and a cold draft swept through the halls. Her heart leapt in fear. Ari was alone in their small room across the lower sector. Without thinking, she ran. The corridors were filled with panicked workers. Dust blew through the cracks in the outer sealed doors. She pushed past them, calling her daughter's name. When she reached her block, she found the door stuck half open, jammed by a fallen beam. She pulled, but it wouldn't move. The air was already cold, thin. She could hear Ari's faint crying inside. "Ari, stay back," she shouted, tugging with all her strength. The beam didn't move. Tears filled her eyes again, not of sadness this time, but of fear. Then a rough voice behind her said, "Move aside." It was Jack. His coveralls were dusty, and his face was streaked with grit. He had come looking for survivors when he noticed her building collapse. Without hesitation, he gripped the beam with both hands and pulled. Metal groaned. Muscles strained. With a deep growl, he heaved it aside. The door slid open. Tlyra rushed in and gathered Eri into her arms. The child clung to her, trembling but safe. Jack leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "You two all right?" Tlyra looked up at him, tears streaking down her cheeks. "You came." "Again? Couldn't leave you trapped," he said simply. "That's not how humans do things." She smiled weakly, holding Eri close. "Then maybe the galaxy needs more humans?" Jack laughed softly. "I doubt it could handle us." They waited together until the storm passed. The colony lights returned hours later, flickering weakly. Dust covered everything, but they were safe. Over the next few days, something changed between them. Jack began stopping by their room after work, bringing spare food packs or small tools for Eri to play with. He taught Tlyra how to repair small machines, filters, power cells, even a few broken cleaning bots. "You've got a steady hand," he said one evening as she adjusted a circuit. "You ever think of fixing things full-time?" She smiled. "Once, long ago, but that life is gone." Jack shook his head. "Nah, not gone. Just waiting." Eri giggled from the floor, where she was drawing shapes with chalk. "Mama's gonna be a fixer like you," she said proudly. Tlyra laughed softly. "Maybe she's right," she said. The days passed quickly after that. The three of them began to feel like a small family, strange, mismatched, but whole. Other workers noticed, too. Some whispered, surprised to see an alien woman and a human man working side by side. But Jack didn't care. He never did. One night, as they finished repairing a damaged ventilation unit, Tlyra looked up at the stars through the hangar window. "You know," she said quietly, "on my world, the stars used to mean hope. Then the war came, and we stopped looking at them." Jack glanced at her. "Maybe it's time you look again." She met his eyes. "Because of you?" He smiled. "Because of you and Eri, you remind me what we fight for, life that refuses to give up." She stared at him for a long time, the faint hum of machines surrounding them. There was something steady in his gaze, not pity, not curiosity, but respect. The moment stretched between them, quiet and gentle. Then Eri's toy bird swooped down and landed between them, chirping loudly. They both laughed. The silence broke, replaced by warmth. Jack stood, brushing off his hands. "Looks like your little bird wants more upgrades," he said. Tlyra smiled. "Then we'll fix it together." He nodded. "Together sounds good." Outside, the storm-scarred horizon of Viralani glowed faintly under the twin moons. Inside the hangar, a mechanic, an alien mother, and her child stood surrounded by soft light and the hum of machines. 3 lives that had once been broken, now slowly being repaired piece by piece. Days passed quietly on Virellanine, yet peace was fragile. The colony still bore scars of years of war, cracked domes, unstable power grids, and pockets of abandoned machinery. Life was a constant challenge, and survival often depended on vigilance, courage, and, above all, adaptability. Tlyra had grown used to the rhythm of her small, unusual family. Each morning, she woke Eri gently, helping her wash and dress while humming a soft alien tune. Eri, now more confident, often helped with small chores, her tiny hands clumsily holding a wrench or carefully arranging parts. She even tried helping Tlyra repair broken devices. Though she mostly watched and learned, Jack's presence had become a quiet certainty. He visited almost daily, bringing small gifts, tools, or stories from other parts of the colony. Tlyra still couldn't understand why a human would go out of his way to help them, especially since humans were often self-serving. But Jack never asked for credit, never sought praise. He simply appeared when needed, as if instinct told him to protect what mattered. On one afternoon, the colony alarms blared suddenly. Red lights flashed violently across the domes, and an automated voice warned of a hull breach in one of the outer sectors. The wind outside had picked up again, tearing against the domes, sending grit and metal shrapnel across the open corridors. Clara's heart leaped into her throat. Ari was still playing with her toy bird in their small room. Without hesitation, she grabbed the child and sprinted through the corridor, dodging falling beams and debris. The emergency lights flickered, casting a chaotic glow on the walls, making shadows jump like living things. Jack was already at the scene. His large frame moved through the stormy corridors with certainty, guiding panicked workers away from danger. Seeing Clara and Ari, he shouted, "This way! Quick!" He reached her side and helped pull the beam of twisted metal that had fallen near their quarters. Ari clung tightly to her mother as Jack carried them through the wind-filled halls. Every gust threatened to knock them down. Every shadow seemed alive with danger. The colony's automated systems groaned and failed intermittently, but Jack remained steady. His hands, scarred from years of mechanical work, were strong and precise. When they reached a safe chamber within the colony, Clara sank to her knees, breathing hard, and hugged Ari tightly. "I thought," she whispered, but words failed her. The fear of losing her child had nearly overwhelmed her. Jack placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said. "We all are. Humans, aliens, everyone. Sometimes it takes a human to make sure people survive." Clara looked at him, her silver eyes glistening. There was something in that statement, simple, direct, and yet filled with meaning. Humans didn't just survive. They acted often with courage that defied logic. Jack embodied that bravery. Over the next few hours, the colony workers worked to repair the breach. Jack coordinated with both human and alien technicians, giving clear instructions while simultaneously checking on Clara and Ari. She watched him, fascinated as he moved among the chaos. A calm center in a storm, a protector in every sense. Once the breach was contained, Jack returned to them. Ari, despite the scare, ran to him with her little toy bird in hand. "Jack, watch it dance," she said, making it hover in intricate patterns. Jack laughed, carefully guiding the drone. "Looks like your bird is braver than half the colony," he said. Clara smiled faintly. "It's because of you. You taught her that broken things can fly again." Jack shook his head. "She taught herself. I just help along the way." That evening, after the repair work was complete, Jack invited Clara and Ari to the hangar again. He had been working on a small device, a hovering platform for Ari's toy bird to rest safely when not in use. The platform was simple, sturdy, and elegant in design. Ari's eyes widened when she saw it. "Wow, it floats." Jack nodded. "Yup, now your bird has its own place when it's tired. No more broken wings." Clara placed a hand on Jack's arm. "You didn't have to do this," she said softly. "I did," he replied, meeting her gaze. "Because it matters. Because you both matter." Now the words were heavy with sincerity. Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, not just because of the gesture, but because of the man himself. Humans had a way of acting on instinct, on emotion, on the belief that kindness could create change. And here, in this small hangar on a war-scarred colony, Jack's humanity was making a difference. Days turned into weeks. The bond between the three grew stronger. Ari often ran between Jack and her mother, chattering in a mix of alien and broken human words. Clara and Jack worked side by side on small repairs, sometimes teaching, sometimes learning. She discovered that humans didn't just fix things, they persisted. They never gave up, no matter the difficulty. One afternoon, a new challenge arrived. A section of the colony's dome had begun to crack, threatening the environmental integrity of the entire living sector. The control systems had failed due to age and the recent storm, and the alarms screamed continuously. Workers panicked. Clara felt her heart stop. She knew the danger. The outer dome needed immediate repair. Without it, breathable air could fail, and anyone outside the safe chambers could be exposed to the thin, icy air. Jack didn't hesitate. "Grab what you can. We're going out there," he said. His voice carried authority and calm at the same time. Clara followed, taking Ari into her arms. The wind tore at them as they reached the damaged section. Shards of metal rattled and clanged, the storm outside screaming like an angry beast. Jack moved quickly, assessing the damage. Clara felt her hands tremble as she held Aerie close, afraid of every sudden gust. "You'll have to trust me," Jack shouted over the roar. "I'll get this done. You two stay low." Talira nodded, squeezing her daughter. She had already learned that humans could do things that others wouldn't even try. Jack's courage was quiet, deliberate, but undeniable. Hours passed. Jack worked tirelessly, fixing the structural panels, reinforcing the seals, and rerouting power to emergency systems. Clara watched, silently amazed. Every now and then, he glanced at her to ensure she and Aerie were safe. When the final panel was secured, Jack stepped back. The dome lights flickered back to life, steady and warm. The wind outside softened as the emergency systems stabilized. Clara felt tears stream down her face, not from fear this time, but relief. "You did it," she whispered. Jack shrugged, though there was a faint smile. "We did it together." Aerie, now brave despite the ordeal, ran to Jack. "You saved us," she exclaimed, hugging his legs. Jack picked her up gently. "We all look out for each other," he said. Clara placed a hand on his shoulder. "You really are different from anyone I've known," she said softly. "Humans, you don't just survive. You fight. You protect. You care?" Jack met her gaze. "We have to. Someone has to. Otherwise, the galaxy would be too cold, too empty. We fix what we can, help who we can, and keep going." She felt a deep respect, and something more than respect, an understanding that this human had become more than a helper. He had become a part of their lives, a steady presence that made the colony feel less lonely, less dangerous. Evening fell, painting the dome in shades of violet and silver. Aerie ran circles with her toy bird, now safe and hovering above the new platform. Talira watched her daughter and then looked at Jack. Words were unnecessary. Their bond was clear, a small family formed from survival, kindness, and courage. Jack glanced at her, dusting dust from his coveralls. "Looks like your little bird wants to dance again," he said. Clara laughed, a soft, genuine sound she hadn't heard from herself in years. "It does," she said. Jack nodded. "Good. Let it. That's what humans do. And aliens too, I guess." For the first time in years, Talira felt hope. She had been a mother alone, struggling, surviving. Now, with Jack by her side, she realized that even in a universe so vast and dangerous, human courage and kindness could light the darkest nights. And somewhere deep in her heart, she knew that whatever storms came next, they would face them together. The twin moons of Viralanian shone through the repaired dome, casting soft light over mother, daughter, and mechanic. The little bird fluttered between them, its wings catching the glow, a symbol of repair, hope, and the strength of human and alien hearts combined. For Talira, for Aerie, and even for Jack. The galaxy suddenly seemed a little less cold and a little more like home,